What's up, guys? Poker with a Purpose, back with you today with another vlog. This is our third week hosting the Poker with a Purpose game here at the Wynn. It's a 2-5 game, no limit hold'em. It's $500 to $1,500 buy-in. And we got some familiar faces. We got some new faces.
This is so cliche, but I love the freedom that poker gives me. Poker is just such a fascinating game that just keeps evolving. Like, we never stop growing. We never reach a cap, you know, in terms of like the best players are still studying. You learn a lot about yourself, discipline, how to navigate through downswings. And it's a game that teaches you self-resilience, honestly, off the felt. And I love that it teaches you how to be very analytical, very critical about the positions and situations you put yourself in life.
Poker is really a beautiful metaphor for life. In poker, you can prepare and do everything perfectly and still have an undesirable outcome. And just like in life, you can also do everything poorly and have a favorable outcome. So I think there's a translation there that sort of teaches you not to always, look at the final result of something, but rather, what you put into it, and if you're preparing the right way, if you're, spiritually, mentally fit to put yourself in a position to have a good outcome.
Probably just putting in work off the table, not just playing a lot, which a lot of people don't do, I feel like. Mostly theory, but also like poker's super emotional, so learning how to manage tilt. I've been working on more work-life balance, I guess, so it's kind of making it more enjoyable to play poker. Yeah, every day. You have something to look forward to outside of the poker table. So
I'm creating these lineups myself, and the intention is to create a fun action game where everybody is welcome to be themselves. There's a lot going on. This is not like a straightforward 2-5 game. So I'm really enjoying how this is shaking out, and we get to explore the various layers of the mindsets that people bring to the table, the beliefs they bring, and how they play. What I'd love from you guys is your feedback. So show up in the comments now. What would you like to see? And who would you like to see? Or just any feedback that you'd like to give us on this vlog. We appreciate it. We appreciate you watching, so thank you. And today, the intention is to create connection, to create playfulness, and ultimately just to be myself. So looking forward to seeing what's happening, and let's go.
All right, we've got an action-packed, fun-filled lineup for you today. The players sat down, ready to play. They're splashing around, getting in there. We're seeing multi-way pots. They came ready to play today. So hand one here, we have Eric opening 20 under the gun. Michael calls, and I squeeze Jack 10 of spades here to 120. I went bigger because the pots were going multi-way, but this play in general was a little bit too ambitious for me. We can just flat here and see a flop or fold and get settled into the dynamic. But I was playing through my excitement at this point. And when we're doing that, when we don't have a purpose, when we're attacking the hand without a greater, higher purpose, we're creating an unconscious purpose. And the unconscious purpose for me in this spot became, I want to try to win this pot. And when I send a message to my unconscious that I'm trying to win a pot or I want to win one, I will go for just enough to light some extra money on fire before almost inevitably losing the pot because I'm not ready to make whatever action is necessary to actually get the successful outcome rather than hoping or wishing for one. And in this case, on an ace-high flop, I saw that Eric was settled and focused and attached to fighting for the pot, but I didn't acknowledge my own attachment, and I end up c-betting, he raises, and then we fold. So how often do you find yourself losing bigger pots because you are trying to win the pot rather than playing your best poker? All right, in hand two, we've got an interesting hand between Poker Llama and Michael. And what happens is I see a single raise pot. Llama c-bets with king queen on a jack high board. Michael raises about 4x with 10-9 of hearts. So he has a gut shot and a flush draw. Llama calls out of position with king high. The turn is a blank. it goes check, check, and the river is another jack, which is basically a blank, and it goes check, check, and Llama wins here with king, queen. So a couple things going on here. First, let's go to Llama, and I interviewed them about this hand to get their thoughts. Now, Llama is a highly intuitive player. I also believe that his attachment to fight for pots or to prove himself is ultimately the main thing that holds him back from taking a big leap in his game. So even on the flop, being right meant calling out of position when he has almost no chance to improve, and some reverse implied odds as well of hitting what he thinks is a card, king or queen, and he could be drawing dead. So even having the best hand on the flop, he was still a statistical underdog in the hand. So the lesson is the balance in knowing when to let go, even if you intuitively connected to that the player doesn't have a made hand and you might have the best hand. Letting go of that attachment means learning the lesson of, I don't have a hand to play back with, and now I know this is what this player's like when he's drawing or has a weak hand, and I can use that going forward. Now for Michael, with the gut shot and the flush draw, he makes a play on the flop and then ends up checking down the river. And what he said was basically he didn't want to look silly on camera, bluffing off and losing a bunch of money. So the learning here from Michael, and he said this, was later on in the hand, he decided to bluff a missed flush draw on a river versus a player with a made hand, and he ended up getting called. So he realized that it was a small mistake of not following through with the 10 high bluff here versus Llama's king high. But the far bigger learning was to realize that he never let go of the hand or the mistake in his mind. And he doubled down by wanting to make up for it in this later hand where he tried to bluff Eric on the river. And he lost extra just to prove to his own voice of judgment that he's capable. Instead, by not stepping through his resistance in either hand, maybe the only thing he confirmed to himself is that he's not good enough at poker and more. So notice for you, if you have a conversation in your head about you that goes far outside the poker table or the hand you played, how does that impact your game? And more importantly, how does it confirm about what you already believe about yourself? All right, in hand 3, we've got the stand-up game on, and we got a three-way pot going to happen between Eric, Ken, and a new player, Travis. And this hand is just going to be a confirmation of the state that the player's in. They're all in total fight mode. So what happens is Eric ends up slow playing jacks pre-flop. We go 4 ways to a flop, a 9-6 deuce with 2 hearts. It's going to check to Ken, who bets 120. Travis calls the 120. And then Eric is like, all right, now it's time to fight with my jacks. So he check raises to 400. Ken calls, Eric calls. On the turn, Ken hits 2 pair, and Travis picks up a straight draw to go this flush draw. So now the pot's bloated. Eric jams 800. Ken calls with his 2 pair 800. And of course, Travis now flush draw, straight draw. He calls, and they end up getting it all in for a super bloated pot. So the lesson here is that when players are fighting, the money will go in super light. So we get to decide how much variance we're choosing. In this case, we don't have to bloat the pot early since they're widest pre-flop and on the flop. And we can choose to do it on the turn, for example, or even play small ball up until the river. Why? Well, if we feel we have an unbeatable edge in pushing them off hands when they miss, then we get to decide how much variance we want to create with our value hands as well. So in this next hand, I'm playing a hand versus Ken, and I open King Queen to 30. Ken very quickly and excitedly 3 bets in the big blind, and I end up calling. And I basically just called here because I haven't played a pot and I wanted to get in the action. So I called without any purpose other than a faint idea that I'll just connect to him post flop and then I'll know what to do from there. I didn't acknowledge that ultimately I wanted to play it safe. And since that was my unconscious purpose, I was going to enforce it one way or another, whether I liked it or not. And so the way the hand ended up playing out is I floated because I saw on the flop that he didn't have anything. He was jittery, unsettled, and he wanted me to believe that he was strong. And then when I hit the king on the turn, which I thought was a great card for me, I disconnected from him. And even though I'd still out of the corner of my vision saw that he settled in much more and was attached to the pot, I was like, well, I hit my card. So what's the safe thing to do when I hit my card? Bet turn and bet river. And so he ends up having ace king and we lose. So by not addressing my resistance became my reality, playing it safe. What was I resisting is doing anything that would risk my stack. And what I got was I unconsciously wanted a safe hand where I didn't lose, but instead I lose just enough in a quote standard way. Okay, it's time for a break. So the biggest issue that I'm noticing right now is I'm not connecting. I got stuck playing patient mode early and waiting for spots because the game was super loose, actiony. So I was playing patient, but then it turned into wait for hands instead of wait to connect. Then when I got hands, the cards didn't cooperate and I valued myself twice because my priority wasn't connection. So the adjustment for the next 90 is to apply my process. Breathe, connect through my questions, and embrace and step into discomfort. All right, back from break. We had a nice little reset break. Great time to clear out what's not working and reset the intention. We get back, we get queens, we open, and Ken calls. We get a king, jack, 6 flop. Now, the flop can be a check or a bet once I saw that he didn't connect enough to have me beat. Now, at this point, it's just about trusting my intuitive connection with the players based on thousands of hands that I've played, hundreds of hours of self-work and study, and knowing that all this knowledge is stored in my unconscious. So if I'm playing a game, I can down bet like really small here and get him to either call me super wide or even attack the pot and trust my connection to him with the run out on every street. The check is fine also, and we get him basically to stab turn. We call and we get him to stab river, and he just mucks without even showing. All right, in this next hand, we've got the stand-up game on. There's only 2 left in the stand-up. The game right now is very loose bingo. And I went a little bit high variance here in this spot, just based on my connection to Travis, who after I make it 75 and a new loose action player calls, Travis makes it 325. We're about 1,300 effective, and I saw that he was jittery and unhappy, so I immediately eliminate aces, kings, and queens here. So I know that jacks is the best hand. I'm kind of hoping that he can have some underpairs in there also, which is probably unlikely. But the learning here is I can flat his raise, the 325, knowing that he's likely fully attached to the pot and fighting for it, while I can choose to easily fold the flop if he connects, and I can go with it if he doesn't. So this is another example of me choosing to play higher variance than needed when I can get the player to put it in much, much worse shape than he is with the coin flip pre-flop. All right, this next hand, this is probably the best hand I played all day. And what made it the best was not the result, but the fact that I was able to acknowledge my discomfort and resistance in the moment and choose to step through that discomfort to get the outcome that was most aligned for me. We open queens. The game is still very action, loose bingo, button clicky. The players are fighting. So we open, we get 3 calls, and the pot is 200. We got queens on a jack 4 deuce, 2 diamond board. So there's a flush draw out there. I bet 100, and this new fun action player makes 300. I saw that he was peacocking strength, and after the raise, he became much more jittery and unsettled. So I ask myself here, what am I resisting? Calling and getting a bad run out. So the excitement wanted me to just go with my hand here. The more emotionally uncomfortable thing would have been to flat. So this hand is all about patience in the moment, being present with the desire to do what's safe, aka what's easiest and most comfortable. I could hear myself wanting to jam the flop just to get it over with. And by staying with that and acknowledging that and ultimately choosing to step into the scariest outcome in the moment, which would be calling and running into a bad card and losing the pot, I actually become in charge of my emotions and the situation here. That patience allowed me to connect to how jittery and unsettled he was while being energized, which told me all that I am dodging is the flush card. And then I let go of the attachment to either winning this pot or losing my stack. And I created permission in the moment for all outcomes, which created the reality that all outcomes are safe and I'm aligned with them all. So basically, the same exact way I would have felt if I got to see his whole cards by connecting to him and stepping through my own fearful thought, I created the lowest variance and most bullseye decision that was available. So when I choose to be present with what's coming up and let go of all the attachment to the outcomes, this is what's possible for me. And ultimately, this is what the work is all about. All right, in this next hand, we are back to our old pattern of avoiding discomfort and avoiding what I'm feeling. We see a flop with 9-10 of hearts. We flop the bottom end of the straight, the second nuts. And this is another example of avoiding what I'm feeling rather than being present with what's coming up, stepping into any discomfort or fear and making the aligned decision from there. For me, getting super excited when I'm hitting a monster is often something that gets me more out of alignment than having complete air or an average hand. There's a attachment to, I need to make the most of it, that I don't acknowledge often enough to let go of. Because ultimately, just because I have the nuts does not at all mean that this is a hand that I'll make any money from. This is just another hand where I happen to have a very strong hand. The purpose of connecting and stepping into discomfort does not change based on the strength of my hand, or it shouldn't. So in this moment, what was I avoiding? Missing out on max value. And stepping into discomfort would have been to bet small and being okay that once in a blue moon, I could misread him and miss out on extra value. Because as we see in this case, Llama had ace jack, which is third pair on a very connected board with a flush draw on it. And he's just not putting in any money here. So we get to connect first and foremost and acknowledge any excitement and clear it out and then make our decision based on connection. One last hand for you guys here. The important thing to note on this hand is the dynamic shift. All the fight energy, all the bloated pots, all the excitement, all of that has completely gone out of the game. And I noticed this right away. The dynamic now is soft, call to smash, peel to improve, play it safe, and wanting it easy. So we open 8-9 of diamonds here to 35, get called by two players. The flop comes ace, king, 8 with 3 clubs. We have no clubs, but we see that both players are flat, jittery, and disconnected. So our plan, triple. When they're playing it safe and they're not attached to the pot, that's when we step on the gas. And so sensing when the dynamic shifts before anyone else is an art form in itself. The players will telegraph it with their emotional state. And once the game becomes very basic call to improve, the players will let us know very clearly what side of the fence they're on now. And they'll start folding out hands where just 30 minutes ago, they would have been willing to put their entire stack in.
All right, so what I was reminded of in today's session is just how much I am in control of the outcome. Oftentimes, I react to the table dynamic rather than being proactive in guiding them into doing what they are there to do. So when they want to fight and pile money in, there are ways to help them put that money in on the turn or even the river. When they look to play it safe, I can take them out of the comfort zone enough on any street to build dead money and make them fold. When I hit a big hand or have no hand, ultimately it comes down to me connecting to the players. So how often have you blamed your results, short or long term, on variance when you knew on a deeper level it was how you were playing? It's easy to blame something that's not in our control because looking within and taking full accountability for our results feels way more scary. And that's exactly where your best play and best results are hiding. Are you ready to go all the way in? See you next time.